Hi friends, I am Amar Mohite. Our today's topic of discussion is residual solvents. In this session, we will go through history of residual solvents, some important definition and basics of residual solvents, followed by classification of residual solvents, and at the end of session, we will discuss limits of residual solvents. Friends, in 1988, the United States Pharmacopoeia first time provided the control limits and testing criteria for the 7 organic volatile impurities under official chapter USP 467 having title Residual Solvents. Initially, these 7 organic volatile impurities were chosen based on their relative toxicities, and the USP 467 was applicable only to drug substances and some excipients. At the latter stage, the scope of the USP 467 has been expanded to all drug substances, excipients and drug products given in USP. The assessment of residual solvents as per USP 467 is mandatory to all the monographs of drug substances, excipients and drug products mentioned in USP, even though the test of residual solvent is not mentioned in specific monograph. In the meantime, ICH also published their guideline, that is ICH Q3C on residual solvents. The requirements mentioned in ICH Q3C and USP 467 are similar. However, there is slight difference between ICH Q3C and USP 467. ICH Q3C is applicable to only new drug substances and new drug products, whereas USP 467 is applicable to all new as well as existing drug substances, excipients and drug products given in USP. Residual solvents in pharmaceuticals are defined as organic volatile chemicals that are used or produced during the manufacturing of drug substances, excipients or drug products. There is no therapeutic benefit from the residual solvent to the patients. Hence, drug product should not contain higher levels of residual solvent that can be justified by its safety data. This is to ensure the safety of patient. The residual solvent should be removed from material and products to the extent to meet the specification limit. This can be done by two ways. First way is to avoid the use of solvents during manufacturing process. However, in majority of cases, the use of solvent is mandatory in order to enhance the yield of material or product. It is also required in purification to reduce the level of impurities. The appropriate selection and use of solvents is also required to achieve certain characteristics. For example, to achieve the crystalline form or to achieve the desired purity or appearance or solubility. In all these cases, the use of solvents in manufacturing is unavoidable. In these cases, the option 2 or second option to be followed, that is testing of the material for residual solvent when manufacturing process required the use of solvents for synthesis or purification. In these cases, it is not required to test your material for all residual solvents. As per USP 467 and ICH Q3C, only those solvents which are either used or produced during the manufacturing are required to be tested. In case the solvents are used for manufacturing, the drying procedures should be part of process to ensure that the residual solvents are removed from the material or product. However, practically it is not possible to remove the all traces of residual solvents completely from the material or product. The cumulative method may be used to calculate the levels of residual solvents in drug products. This can be done by addition of levels of residual solvents in the ingredients, that is drug substances and excipients used to manufacture the drug product. If the observed results are equal to or below the specification limit of drug product, in that case it is not required to test the drug product for residual solvents. If the observed result is higher than the specification limit of drug product, in that case the testing for residual solvent of drug product is mandatory to ensure that whether the formulation process has reduced the levels of residual solvent to the acceptable level, that is below specification limit. The residual solvents are categorized in 3 different classes based on their relative toxicities and risk assessment. The solvents which falls under class 1 should be avoided. It means that these solvents which falls under class 1 should not be used in the manufacturing of pharmaceuticals. These solvents includes human carcinogens. Carcinogens means the solvents which causes the cancers. This class also includes strongly suspected human carcinogens and environmental hazards. Class 1 includes 5 solvents: benzene, carbon tetrachloride, 1,2-dichloroethane, 1,1-dichloroethene and 1,1,1-trichloroethene. The limit for benzene is 2 ppm. For carbon tetrachloride 4 ppm. The limit for 1,2-dichloroethane is 5 ppm. The limit for 1,1-dichloroethene is 8 ppm. Similarly, limit for 1,1,1-trichloroethane is 1500 ppm. These limits are based upon the safety data. Benzene falls under category of carcinogenic. Benzene can cause the cancer to the patients. Hence, the benzene and other solvents which falls under class 1 should not be used for the manufacturing of pharmaceuticals. In exceptional cases where the use of any one of these solvent is required, in those cases The material or products should be tested for these solvents, and levels of these solvent should be below the limits mentioned over here. The second category of residual solvents is class 2 residual solvents. These solvents are relatively less toxic compared to class 1 solvents. However, use of these solvents should be limited. The typical examples of class 2 residual solvents are acetonitrile, chloroform, methanol, toluene and tetrahydrofuran. The comprehensive list of solvents which falls under class 2 is provided in ICH Q3C and USP 467. Total 29 solvents are included in class 2 category. The limits for class 2 residual solvents are established based on the PDE, that is permitted daily exposure of each respective residual solvent. How to establish the limit for class 2 residual solvent we will discuss in last session of this video. The third category of residual solvents is class 3 solvents. These solvents are solvents with low toxic potentials to human. These solvents should be used wherever possible in any proportion. The limit of PDE, that is 50 mg per day, that is 5000 ppm per day, or 0.5% LOD is acceptable to ensure that class 3 solvents are controlled properly. Even higher limits can also be proposed based on proper justifications, since there are no health exposure limits are mentioned for class 3 solvents. The limits for class 1 and class 3 residual solvents are fixed. There is no requirement of establishment of separate limit for class 1 and class 3 residual solvents. For example, benzene. Benzene is class 1 residual solvent and limit of benzene is 2 ppm, which is fixed. Hence, there is not requirement to establish separate limit for benzene. Similar is the case of other remaining class 1 residual solvents. The class 3 residual solvents has provided with exposure limit of 50 mg per day. This is because there is no risk to the patient due to the class 3 residual solvents. These solvents are having very low toxic potential. In this last session, we will discuss the limits for class 2 residual solvents. There are two different options provided for the establishment of specification limit of class 2 residual solvents. First is option 1 criteria. Option 1 criteria is applicable when the daily dose is not known or fixed. In this case, 10 gram is considered as daily dose. Based on PDE, that is permitted daily exposure of respective solvent, you can calculate the option 1 limit for each solvent. For example, permitted daily exposure for acetonitrile is 4.1 1 mg per day. So based on this PDE of acetonitrile, you can calculate the option 1 limit of acetonitrile using the formula 1000 into PDE divided by dose. In case of option 1 criteria, dose is considered as 10 gram. If you put the value of PDE 4.1 and dose as 10 gram, the option 1 limit for acetonitrile will be 410 ppm. 1000 into 4.1 divided by 10 will be 410 ppm. Similarly, the PDE for chloroform is 0.6 mg per day. So based on this PDE, you can calculate the option 1 limit as 60 ppm. That is 0.6 thousand into 0.6 divided by 10 will be equal to 60 ppm. So this is the list of residual class 2 residual solvents, their respective permitted daily exposures, and using this formula you can calculate the option 1 limit for any class 2 solvent. Option 2 criteria can be applied when daily dose is greater than 10 gram or fixed, that is known. It is not necessary for all components of drug product to meet the option 1 limit. Option 2 limit can be applied by adding together the residual solvent results of each component in drug product. The final result should be less than the permitted daily exposure, that is PDE of the respective solvent. To understand the difference between application of option 1 and option 2, let's take one example for acetonitrile residual solvent. The permitted daily exposure of acetonitrile is 4.1 mg. Based on PDE, the option 1 limit of acetonitrile is 410 ppm. 1000 into 4.1 divided by 10, that is 410 ppm. The option 1 limit for acetonitrile is 410 ppm. Let's take one drug product having daily dose of 5 gram. The product contains a drug substance and two different excipients. The proportion of drug substance is 0.5 gram, excipient 1 2 gram and excipient 2 2.5 gram. The total daily dose is equal to 5 gram. If the amount of acetonitrile, that is the result of acetonitrile in each component, that is drug substance, excipient 1 and excipient 2, is less than option 1 limit, that is 410 ppm, then there is no requirement to analyze the drug product or residual solvent. You can release your drug product without analysis of residual solvent, since the results of all ingredients, that is drug substance and excipient, with respect to acetonitrile are less than 410 ppm. In this case, option 1 is applied and you can directly release your drug product. Whereas already mentioned, it is not necessary for each component of drug product to meet the option 1 limit. We take the same example. The drug product having daily dose of 5 gram, composition of drug substance is 0.5 gram, excipient 1 2 gram and excipient 2 2.5 gram. The result of drug substance is 700 ppm, excipient 1 is 200 ppm, excipient 2 is 500 ppm. The option 1 limit of acetonitrile is 410 ppm. From this table, we can understand that the drug substance and excipient 2 does not comply with the option 1 limit of acetonitrile. The observed result of drug substance is 700 ppm and excipient 2 is 500 ppm. Both results are above 410 ppm. In this case, you can apply the option 2 limit. This can be done by calculating the daily exposure in mg for each component of the drug product. The proportion of drug substance is 0.5 gram and your result of acetonitrile in drug substance is 700 ppm, that is 0.7 milligram. So daily exposure will be calculated by multiplying 0.5 into 0.7. The result will be 0.35 mg. That is daily exposure of 0.35 mg will be contributed by drug substance. Similarly, you can calculate the daily exposure due to excipient 1. The proportion of excipient 1 is 2 gram. The result is 200 ppm, that is 0.2 mg. If you multiply together, the daily exposure will be 0.4 mg. Similarly, for excipient 2, 2.5 gram into 0.5 mg, that will be equal to 1.25 mg. We will add together this daily exposure and final exposure will be 2 mg per day. We know the PDE of acetonitrile is 4.1 mg per day. The observed result of 2 mg per day is less than 4.1 mg. Hence, this drug product complies with the option 2 limit. The level of acetonitrile in final drug product is below permitted daily exposure of acetonitrile. Hence, in this case also, by applying option 2, it is not required to analyze the drug product for residual solvent since the final result is below 4.1 mg, that is PDE of the acetonitrile. You can directly release your drug product based on option 2 limit. This was one example related to acetonitrile. By similar way, you can apply this option 1 and option 2 criteria for any residual solvent whose PDE is known. So, friends, based on the composition of different ingredients of drug product, you can apply option 2 limit also. If all results are below option 1 limit, then there is no requirement to apply the option 2 limit. You can directly release your batch without testing. If any of the content or any of the ingredient of drug product does not comply with the option 1 limit, you can apply option 2 limit. If the final value, the final daily exposure by adding together the daily exposure of all ingredients of the drug product is less than permitted daily exposure of the residual solvent, then you can release your batch without analyzing for residual solvent based on option 2 limit. Friends, this was all about the residual solvents. If you have liked the content of this video, I would like to request you, please subscribe my channel. Thank you very much.